While Ethan is stepping into Victor's shoes without even realizing it, Donna might turn out to be the one who finally points the way to the Lake of Tears. Today, we're breaking down all the key details from episode 6 to figure out exactly where the show is heading next. Let's start with what we now know for sure. After the residents of Fromville are gone, their fears can actually materialize. This means a huge chunk of what our characters have faced before wasn't just random. A while back, in one of my videos, I pointed out what Sarah said about the cicadas. She explicitly mentioned that her brother was terrified of those insects. On top of that, Tabitha's story about the dolls coming to life right after a local resident passed away only backs up this theory. It honestly feels like the forest is literally learning how to scare people, using the fears of past generations as its main source of info. It kind of reminds me of Pennywise's horror ecosystem when he first landed on Earth, and that is far from the only creepy conclusion we can draw about the nature of Fromville based on episode 6. While everyone used to think the monsters couldn't come out during the day because it goes against their nature, that whole concept is getting flipped on its head. Jade suggested that the tunnel dwellers only stay underground during the day because they're guarding the place he saw in his vision. And that actually makes a lot of sense, considering the Ankui children are at the very core of this town. So, it turns out the monsters are underground not because they're hiding from the sunlight, but because they're on duty. They are literally pulling guard duty around the town's engine, while the residents upstairs go about their daily lives. What's most interesting is that this whole setup only works as long as nobody starts asking questions. Because let's be real, the chances of anyone intentionally hunting for underground tunnels at night were pretty much zero, at least until Boyd decided to listen to Jade and smash through that wall in the colony house basement. It's worth noting that our sheriff is pushed into doing this by the medical emergency with Donna and his conversations with Father Katri, who is clearly appearing to him as a ghost. Boyd is incredibly terrified of becoming literally the only adult left who can make the big decisions. Back in the day, Donna inspired him with her resilience and grit, which is exactly why he makes it his mission to try and get everyone back home once again. Boyd finally breaks through the wall, and behind it we see the exact same door from Jade's vision. The guys come to the conclusion that they need a plan. I really hope the showrunners don't drag their feet on executing it, because let's face it, this season has been running a little low on high-stakes action. Nobody wants the final episodes of the season to drift away into endless debates about whether or not our heroes should venture down into the tunnels. At the end of the day, I want to understand what could have possibly happened to make the entire town turn on Jade and Tabitha. Meanwhile, Victor seemed to drop a little hint about Boyd's fate. I'm not entirely sure, but at least that's the vibe it gave off. While hanging out on the roof of Colony House, Victor told Boyd about a past resident who tried to fix everything but only ended up making things worse. Considering the sheriff was making a decision based on Jade's words at exact moment, it's definitely a bit alarming. Our sheriff literally has one shot to get this right, and he's flying completely blind with zero clues. Katri tells him to trust Jade regarding the Ankui kids, but that is a very small piece of the puzzle. One wrong move and things could get so much worse. Boyd didn't bring up Martin's words about there being things out there worse than the monsters for nothing. And I'm not just talking about the man in yellow here, who of course shouldn't be underestimated, but it feels to me like he isn't the final link in our story. I've actually been thinking for a long time that Fromville might turn out to be a cage for some kind of ancient force. If that's the case, Jade and Boyd risk making an already terrible situation catastrophically worse for everyone. It's worth remembering the boy in white's words about how something is changing, and it definitely wasn't a good sign, judging by the look on his face when he told Victor about it. We remember that the core plot revolves around a hidden alliance made between the original settlers, who actually became the monsters, and an unknown entity. Well, I have a strong feeling that something went sideways back then. There might have been someone else in this story who interfered with the event, tweaking it and accidentally creating Fromville, which became a cage for the final boss and everyone tied to them. I'm guessing it could have been someone from the indigenous population. There are just way too many elements in the show tied to their culture. Take the talisman stones that protect the houses at night, for example. They work on the principle of sealing off space, and the totems, which were clearly made to push back against the local evil. So, if my theory about this being a trap actually holds up, then the interference of Tabitha and Jade, who keep constantly reincarnating in the real world, might have created a bridge between both worlds. That would explain why the man in yellow is able to meddle with events in the real world. This means the townspeople's future resentment is totally justified. In reality, Jade and Tabitha's actions to save their own daughter put a ton of people at risk. When they made their choice, the couple might not have realized the fallout of their decision because they were acting on pure emotion. But something tells me the residents of Fromville won't care about that once they find out the likely truth. Just a reminder, this is only one of my theories based on what we've seen so far. I actually post videos like this all the time on my channel, so I highly recommend subscribing so you don't miss any updates. Ultimately, I think we need to circle back to what happened with Donna. We know there's a theory that the souls of the people who are lost in Fromville end up in the Lake of Tears, which acts as a sort of archive. Donna basically went through a near-death experience. Theoretically, at that exact moment, she might have seen that very Lake of Tears, or even more interestingly, figured out how Fromville actually works. That would explain why she was so absolutely terrified when she came to. Judging by the clues from the ghosts hanging around, it really feels like they know a lot more than the average resident. That's exactly why I suspect Donna might have come back to us with something useful. At least I really hope so, because we have very few leads left and time is ticking away. So speaking of those looking for the Lake of Tears, at first glance, the scene with Ethan and Victor drawing together might just seem like a cute, innocent moment. But when you remember that Fromville's entire plot is built on cycles, everything starts to look a whole lot more unsettling. We're basically watching Ethan gradually take Victor's place. The little guy is putting those exact creepy dolls he saw in the settlement onto paper, mimicking the exact behavior that once became an inseparable part of Victor's own life. This isn't just a kid's drawing, it's another reminder that history is moving in circles yet again. At this moment, the show hints once more that our hero's cycle is nearing its end. Old roles are slowly shifting to new people, and events seem to be repeating themselves. It looks like everything is going exactly according to the Man in Yellow's plan. Another example is how Henry runs the risk of repeating Abby's storyline. He seems to have taken Sophia's words to heart about everything around them being a dream. Henry is a pretty tough guy, which is why I assume it was hard for Sophia to get to him using her usual methods, forcing her to resort to the drink situation. Before this, we saw her influence people through touch, but this time is totally different. It seems like Henry is mentally way stronger than Marielle and Sarah, so she can't just easily break into his thoughts. Maybe she'll be able to take control of Henry this way, managing what he feels and says. That would be super interesting from a plot standpoint. That's everything that comes to mind, but if you have better ideas, definitely let me know in the comments. I'd love to read your theories. So regarding Sophia, I'm sure you noticed how she suddenly got offended by Henry's words about the Man in Yellow. That's pretty interesting, considering she was just poking fun at human vulnerability not too long ago. Looking at that reaction, you could guess that the Man in Yellow might have actually been a real person once. In my older videos, I mentioned before that he could have been the leader of the settlement that made the deal with the unknown entity. If that's the case, the Man in Yellow's anger toward human nature doesn't seem so out of the ordinary, given what the settlers from Europe had to endure in the new lands. It could also explain why he knows his way around the historical texts so well, since most of the early English colonists were Puritans, for whom their beliefs were the foundation of their settlements. When you piece all these details together, the image of the Man in Yellow starts looking a whole lot less mythical and a lot more human than what they're trying to show us. It seems the Man in Yellow hit a crisis of faith back in the day and decided to turn to other forces. Ultimately, I hope they give us more info on the deal that led to the existence of Fromville. Moving on, I can't leave out Fatima's golem. It will probably play a major role down the line, but for now it feels more like a running joke than an actual plot point. To be honest, it's hard to take it seriously, and it's kind of funny to imagine what Ellis must have felt when he first saw it. Just to be clear, this is absolutely not a dig at Fatima. After everything she's been through, she's holding up incredibly well, which deserves a ton of respect. It's just hard for me to picture how they'll weave this into the story so it feels natural. Let's save that for later, because right now it's way more interesting to talk about Kenny's fate. I'm sticking to my idea that he might use the connection between Fatima and Smiley in his future plans. It really feels like this could be the key to pulling off the rescue mission for the Fromville residents that Boyd and Jade keep talking about. Kenny could very well step up and take on a major role to distract the monsters while his friends are down in the tunnels. I am incredibly excited to finally see how all of this unfolds. Episode 6 wasn't super packed with crazy plot twists, but it did give us a few massive takeaways. Jade's visions are real, the forest can materialize the fears of past Fromville residents, and Ethan seems to be prepping to take over Victor's role. And now I have a question for you. What did you think of episode 6? Maybe you spotted something else interesting that I missed in my video. Share your thoughts and theories down in the comments. Also, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.